Hey guys, Addison Smith here with Everything Church Pro, and welcome to our live stream, very first live stream that we've ever done. And this is going to be all about the vision for the future of Everything Church Pro. And if you are just joining us, Everything Church Pro is a channel and a business all about making the Bible and Bible training accessible, understandable, and enjoyable to anybody who wants it. And so if that sounds interesting to you, stick around and maybe even subscribe to the channel if you would like to. Now, today, we're going to kind of break this down into a couple different ways. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of go over my background and how the vision was birthed out. And then we're going to talk about the vision for the next year. And that vision is broken down into two main things. The first thing we're going to talk about is where we're going to go. Lord willing, it's all up to God. You know, He can change it at any moment. It's all up to Him. But where we're going to be going in the next year, as well as where we could possibly go in the next year, depending on a few different things, okay? And so that's how it's going to be broken down. And I hope that you guys stick around and see what's going on. Now, I'm going to pull it up over here and see if I can... Oh, so that's how it's going to be. Oh, that's awesome. Let me know if you're watching this. This is my first time doing a live stream. And so if bugs happen, bugs happen. But I see... Oh, look, Tate and Bugs is here. Talking about bugs. Tate and Bugs, good to see you guys. And they are good friends of mine. If you haven't checked out their channel, do that afterwards. They are good friends of mine, Tate and Bugs. They do some renovation. Good to see you. If you are watching, comment into this chat, and I want to see who's watching and where you're from. Okay, you don't have to tell me your city, your address, your social security number. Okay, just what state you're watching from. I'd love to see it and chat with you. I see Eddie's watching. Hey Eddie, how you doing? Let's see who else is watching here. We got my wife. That's my wife, people. Isn't she so pretty? Kendra Smith. I see Jarrett. Hey, Brother Jarrett, how are you doing? Miss Melissa, good to see you from Oregon. Yes. Who else? Let's see. Anybody else watching there? I think that's just about everybody. Well, let's dive into it tonight, okay? So, I was born in... Oh, I see Josue. I see Isaiah. Awesome. This is awesome. So, I was born and raised in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon, and so I see some Oregonians here, and man, I have just loved my time here. And I basically lived in one house like my entire life up until I was out of college, and it was a beautiful little mobile home in a mobile home park. And I remember just being able to go outside and play and climb on trees and play with my friend Kevin across the street, and it was just a wonderful time. And I was born and raised in a Christian home, and I am so thankful for that. But just because someone's born in a Christian home doesn't mean that they're destined to be a Christian themselves. And my story was a little bit different, As I was growing up, I got saved when I was 5. When I was 4, I thought I was getting saved. There was this cute girl in my class, and my wife's watching, so I think you've heard this story before. And we just came off of Easter vacation, and while we were there, we got back into the classroom, and Miss Kim Carpenter, she was my teacher, and she said, hey, so anything special happened over Christmas vacation? Or not Christmas, over Easter vacation? And this girl raised her hand, and she said, well, I got saved over Easter vacation. And I looked over there and thought, well, hey, if she got saved, maybe I got saved too. I mean, maybe there'll be some kind of connection there. And so the teacher asked, did anybody else get saved over Easter vacation? And my hand went up, and I began to tell people I was saved. But I was not saved then. I was saved when I was in kindergarten. But as time began to roll on, I doubted my salvation, and I began to literally pray the sinner's prayer every single night. I didn't have rest. I had rest at the beginning, man. I shared my faith, but as time went on, and as my mind began to mature, and I kind of got out of that childlike faith stage, I had so many doubts, and I would pray that sinner's prayer over and over again, just hoping one of those times it would stick, And I remember I'd have dreams, that it was the weirdest thing. And I'm sorry if I'm wasting your time, but there's like this play structure and we jump off. And if we jumped off it and we went up into the sky, we went to heaven. But if we jumped off and went into the ground, we went to hell. It was a terrible dream. I don't know what I was watching on TV or something. But as I jumped off, actually I was in line. I don't think I ever even got to jump off. But my brother, he was on there. And this is terrible, but he jumped off and he didn't make it. He went down, down, down. And so I remember waking up and being like, Jonah, are you sure you're saved? And I would always ask him, and my mom got so mad at me. She's like, quit making him doubt, just stick to yourself. And so I had this wrestling, like, am I really saved? Is this really happening? But it came to a head when I got into high school. And we studied, the mythology and Greek mythology, and I began to just like, man, these things seem like so similar. Like, how can I know? How can I be sure that what I believe is true when I look at mythology and we laugh at it like that's fake? But then I read the Bible and they seem so similar. How can I be sure that what I believe is true? And so I came to the point where I just couldn't believe. I say that I went from a Christian kid to an agnostic, not knowing. I didn't reject it. I didn't hate God. I just didn't know, to a theist, and back to a Christian again. And so I remember struggling, just like I couldn't rest on Jesus. I couldn't rest on God. But as I began to look around, I could not be an atheist because there's just too much evidence for a creator. And maybe one of these videos will talk about that. But I could not just be an agnostic. I couldn't be an atheist. So I became a theist. I began to believe there was a God, but I couldn't rest on Jesus fully. And it was two things that helped me rest. One was an apologetics class, and the other was a person who actually lived like Christ, and I was able to see that they truly believed, and I saw Christ through their life. And those two things combined really helped me finally come to the place where I could rest. And I believe I told my testimony in another video, and so I won't go into too much detail there. But after that moment, when I finally rested, man, my life just re-engaged. When I was first saved, it was on fire. And after, I kind of came back, I was on fire again. And I remember I have letters where I wrote to one of my friends. His name was Wyatt. I won't tell you his last name, but his name was Wyatt. And we would write back and forth. And one of the letters that I wrote him was like, man, if we're called to preach, we need to start acting like pastors now. And I was a junior in high school. And I'm like, man, we got to start acting like pastors now. When's the date you become a man? You got to choose when you're going to mature. And I was just excited. I was on fire for God. And I went off to Bible college for a few years. And that's a whole nother story, which there's a lot of different things that happen in Bible college. But I met my wife there and brought her out of California, and now we're living in Oregon, and she's getting used to the smaller city that we live in. But God has just been so good. But I remember during my college years, I wrote a book, which I will not recommend you read, okay? But I wrote a book, a fiction book. It's a sci-fi book. And you're learning a lot of stuff. But I didn't know how God would use that book in my life. Maybe other people think it's a bunch of trash, but I didn't know how God would use it in my life. You see, as I was writing, God began to help me see how books work and how literature works, how stories work. And as I was a senior in college, I was taking two classes that I didn't even want to take one of them, but I was taking Hebrews, the book of Hebrews, and the book of Joshua at the same time. And those two classes blew my mind wide open because I just spent a year on this book. And then I began to study the book of Joshua and the book of Hebrews, and I began to see how amazing of an author and story maker our God is. And I began to see just how amazing, I have my Bible here, how amazing the Bible is and how beautiful it is and how exquisite it is. I can't even think of all the words, and my mind was just blown. And my prayer is that other people can get that same love for the Bible. And so I came back here to Harvest, where I was the youth pastor for a while, and I began to meditate on Psalm 90 and on the parable of the talents. And this is where we're going to start birthing into the vision. And Psalm 90 is the Psalm of Moses, and he says, man, Lord, teach us to number our days so that we may apply our hearts to wisdom. He said, we don't have forever. Life is so short. God, teach me what to do with my every moment. I don't just want to waste my life. And so I was like, God, I don't have forever. I don't even know if I'll live till I'm 30. I don't know if I'll live till I'm 40. I don't know if I'll live till I'm 50. I don't know how much time I have. So God, teach me what I need to do today for you. And I began to also meditate on the parable of the talents, how that, one guy had 1 talent, another, depending on which story you read, had 2 and 3 or 5 and 10, depending. And they multiplied, except for the one who had the least. And I thought, man, God, am I burying what you've given me? God, I don't want to be somebody who at the end of life, you've given me whatever you've given me, maybe a lot, maybe a little, but I just buried it and I just wasted it. God, I don't want that to be said of me. And so God, I don't have a lot. I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm not the most charismatic person in the world. But God, I believe, just like the little boy with his 5 loaves and 2 fish, I believe if I just bring the little that I have, you can take the little and make it a lot, right? And so as I began to pray about, the best ways to go about sharing the gospel, the one way that kept coming up was sharing this on YouTube. And so hence we have Everything Church Pro. Now, if God were to say, stop it tomorrow, Everything Church Pro would be done. I'll just tell you that. This whole channel is only contingent. As long as God says it's okay, I will keep going. But the moment that it harms my spiritual walk and I have pastors coming and saying, hey, I'm seeing some things in you, it's done. I don't know if you can see, oh man, it's so blurry. I'm looking at the camera here. Back there in green, it says, remember Uzziah. And it says 2 Chronicles 26 right next to it. And that's in all my videos, it's back there. Because Uzziah, he was such a good guy until God blessed him. And then he became a knucklehead because of his arrogance. And so I have that up there as a reminder. If I began to say, man, I'm awesome, this channel's done, I'm going to cancel that, okay? Just so you know, that's not the goal here. So the vision for this upcoming year, I'm going to talk about what we're going to do, Lord willing, based on, I believe it's the book of James off the top of my head, where he says, you're making plans for the future, and you better say that if the Lord wills, we'll do this or that, because you don't know if you'll survive till tomorrow. And so, if Lord willing, if this is what he allows, this is where we're going for the coming year, okay? We're going to, on our every week video, we're going to be covering tough questions and common questions in regards to the Bible and Christianity, okay? So that's going to be the big picture of the year. Now, I don't have all of the questions mapped out, but some of the general questions that we'll be covering would be things like Calvinism. There'll be things like, is there a God? Or when did God begin to exist? Or who created, those types of questions we'll be jumping into. And if you have questions you'd like to see covered, you can leave them in this chat. You can leave them in the comments of other videos. And that's my goal for this next year, is just to answer common questions and complicated questions in our every week video, okay? Also, Lord willing, I would love to see a couple other avenues kind of birthed out of Everything Church Pro. So this channel is all about Bible study and helping you understand your Bible. But church is more than, we do more things than just Bible study and Bible preaching. There's music oftentimes in the service, and we worship God in that way, as well as in the preaching. But we also have, nowadays we have a lot of technology. And so over the next year or two, I'd love to see Everything Church Pro Music get started and Everything Church Pro Tech get started. And so let me just kind of talk about both of those very quickly. Everything Church Pro Music, I've loved playing music since I was very young, but I don't read music. I've learned how to play by theory, understanding how music works. And I've come to realize not everybody plays that way, but a lot of people would love to. They would love to be able to just sit down and play whatever song they've heard. And so Everything Church Pro Music would focus on teaching people to play by theory and play by ear. Because we need church pianists out there. We need church musicians out there. And so that's what that would help. Don't know when that will get started, but Lord willing, if he wants, sometime this year. As well as Everything Church Pro Tech. This would be talking about, how to do the tech side of church, like live streaming and getting TVs operational in different places and projectors and social media, all those kinds of things. That would be in that channel. Okay, so that's where I would love to see happen this year. And if you have ideas for this year, you can leave those in the chat if you would like to. Now, where we might go in 2020. This is what might happen, okay? The first thing is chokhmah and coffee. Man, That has been so fun to do, Hochman Coffee. I have loved it. We're almost to the end of December, and I promised you I would get through December. I have loved it, and I don't know if it's been a blessing to you or not. There have been some people who've said they've enjoyed it, and I'm just so humbled that God has... I've just loved it. I've enjoyed every single moment. But here's the problem, okay? Don't punch me through the camera. I'm sorry. I don't have a computer to edit while I'm on the road. And if you don't know, my family, starting in January, we're going to be traveling a lot, raising support so that we can go plant a church in Grants Pass, Oregon. And the computer I use to edit is the churches that I work at right now. And so I can't produce a video every day when I'm going to be gone so much. But here's the exciting thing that might happen. Ready? Hochman Coffee. We might transition it to a podcast. Okay? If that's something that's interesting to you, would you could write it in the stream down here. If that's something interesting to you, we can explore that podcast. I have a test episode up that once this is over, I'll leave it in the comments here. I don't know how to do that while it's live. I might be able to do it while it's live right here and put the test episode up, and you guys can check that out when you have time. But that's one thing that might happen. But there's some things that have to fall into place if we're going to be able to do it as a podcast, okay? Now, I'm looking here. We have some people who said they would be interested. Someone said, would I, if I had a computer to take on the road? I might be able to keep doing videos if I had a computer to take on the road. So that's totally a possibility. But the computer that I would need would be very powerful. It's a very, so we'll see. But let's continue forward. So the podcast might happen, and I'll tell you kind of some things that would help with the podcast. But first, before we get to that, the second thing that might happen this year, which I would love to happen, I would love to happen if it's possible, is a free or inexpensive online university. My life verse is John 17:17, and it says, "Sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth." What that verse is saying is, Jesus was praying and he says, God, make them holy, make them set apart, make them more like you through your truth. And the truth is your word. And that's both the living word and the written word. And I believe with all my heart, the more that people engage with this, the more they become like God, the more they become Christ-like. The problem with our society today is that not many people are engaging with this. And so if we can make the Bible more accessible to more people, if we can have more Berean Christian, if you don't know the Bereans, when Paul came to the place of Berea and he was preaching, people would go home and they would study on their own. They would take out their Bibles, and he said that they were more noble than those at Thessalonica because they searched the scriptures daily, whether they were so. That is my prayer, that Everything Church Pro could be used to help people really dig in and know the Bible for themselves. The same kind of education that I received, anybody from a mill worker to a rocket scientist to a nurse to whatever walk of life, you could still, if you wanted to, get that same type of education, because the more the Bible can be spread throughout this world, the more people will be like Christ and the better this world will be. And so one thing I'd love to see happen would be an online university. Now this is the problem with the podcast and the online university. Okay? These things cost money for me to be able to put up. And so that would make me have to do two things. And right now, some of you are going to click off. I heard money. Trust me, I'm not going to ask you for money right now. I'm not going to beg of you. That's totally up to you. But I want to tell you why I won't be able to do them if support doesn't happen. I either have to make products to sell you, and I have to become a marketer and be like, hey, buy this course and do this thing. And I don't want to turn the Bible into just a product. I don't want to use this to try to make money. That's not my goal. And so the only other way is if it's crowdfunded. If you guys help pay basically the cost of these things so we can give these out to free to whoever can't pay for them. And maybe you're one of the people who can't pay. Please, this is why we're doing this, because there might be somebody else who could, so I can make this free for you, a whole university completely free. And so that's why we started the Patreon. And so that's why it's there. If you've seen that pop up on some of the videos, the Patreon's there so that we can do these different things for free to everybody, because I don't want to become a marketer. I don't want to become somebody who designs Bible-based things that I have to market and have people pay for. My goal is to give this all away for free as much as possible and have people team up together with me in order to give this out for free. Okay? So there is that. But I want to take some of your questions. If you have questions about the vision or about these different things, feel free right now. I'm going to take some of the questions over here on the computer here. I see many people would be interested in a podcast, which I'm going to see if we have enough coming in Patreon. I got to kind of look at all the different bills that are coming in and see if, right now I'm not taking anything personally from Patreon. It's all going back into these different things. I just want to make sure we have enough to pay for the podcast, because it might already be covered. We have 2 Patreons right now, which are helping out. Okay, but any questions you guys have about the vision, any things you'd like to see in the future, or just questions in general, okay? Any questions? I'm going to try to put that sample podcast episode up here. Any questions? If we don't got any questions, no worries. If you want to search it on your own, Everything Church Pro, you can search Everything Church Pro on SoundCloud, Everything Church Pro. Let me see if I can find it here. Aha, there it is. All right, I'm going to copy this link here. Dun, 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 dun. Copy. I'm going to post this in the comments here. So if you would like to see the sample, it's right there in the comments. You can listen to the sample podcast of Hochman Coffee. Let me look at these questions. When are you going to have a special guest and introduce us to your wife? That is such a good question. I was going to do it on a live stream. Is that my wife right there? Oh, okay. So she's actually commenting another question. I thought she was going to say, yeah, when am I going to be on there? But I will. Okay, let's have a special live stream in the future, in the next month. Okay, you hold me to it. In the next month, let's have a special live stream where I introduce you to my family and my wife, because she should be on here. How Brother Jonah was his. I don't understand what that means, Isaiah. If you could clarify how Brother Jonah was on. If you could clarify what that means, I will answer that question. How do you use Patreon? Do you have to give monthly or just once? Okay, so for the Patreon, I think you can choose either or, and you can give as little as you want or as much as you want, like $1 a month or $5 a month or just $5, period. I think that's what you can do. I've not done too much on the other end. I just started it up. But if you have questions on Patreon, like a specific question, let me see if I can work on that for you. Mr. Daly. How often are you going to be on the road in the next 2 months? Right now, January is full, which praise the Lord, January is full. And we're scheduling out February right now. And so it's going to be probably about every week that we're going to be gone. That's our goal. But we'll see. It's all up to God. But all great questions. Any other questions before we wrap this up? Oh, okay, so a podcast. I see Miss Melissa, I see you have a question about a podcast. So a podcast is basically like audio. It's kind of like what we do here, but with just audio. So there's no video. And so you can kind of just go in and you can just listen to Hochman Coffee every morning. And you can get that if you have Apple, they have a podcast app that you can use. And if you have Android, you can use, what do you call those things? You can use Stitcher, I think there is. They have different apps that you can use to kind of listen to podcasts. How's traveling with 3 boys under 3? Oh, yes. Traveling with 3 boys under 3 is a joy. They've been good so far. But my wife is incredibly patient, and God has provided a good vehicle for us. And so it's been good. I enjoy the family time that we get as we're traveling around. So great questions. I will see if there are any other questions. I'll keep it open for a few more seconds. But if there's no other questions, I can wrap this up, and I will see you guys in our next video. So I'll give it a few more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, my wife just said wait. Okay, I'm waiting. See, I gotta listen to my wife. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. I'm waiting. I don't know what my wife wants me to wait for, but I'm waiting. So, anyone got a joke you want to say while I'm waiting for my wife to tell me what she wants to say? Should we send in questions for the next live streams? Yes. Yeah, and she is trying to make me wait, so it's awkward. So, yeah, if you guys want, you guys can send in questions for the next live streams, and you can do that right here. You can do that in the connection card. You can always send in questions for the next live stream. And so, great question. And thanks, Brother Eddie. It's good seeing you tonight, or I guess I can't see you, but I can see your comments and things. Thanks for watching and being with us. All right, guys. Well, if my wife doesn't say wait again, I'm going to wrap it up. When's the next live stream? I'm going to confer with my wife on that because she's going to be in the next one. And so once she says, all right, this is a good date, we're going to do it, and I'll put it on the calendar, and I'll start telling you more about when that is, okay? So if that's all the questions for today, good night. Thank you all for tuning in and watching, and I pray that you have a wonderful evening and a happy new year, okay? So I will talk to you guys later.